Hello, Pally people. Welcome back to another weekly tasting. I'm once again at our Lompoc Wine Ghetto tasting room here in lovely Lompoc, California. And today we are going to be focusing on three of our first release wines. The first time we've released reserve wines under the Tower 15 label. And so we've got a beautiful 2019 Sémillon, 2018 Grenache, I'm going to switch that order there, and then 2018 Syrah. The Grenache and Syrah both come from Dinner Vineyard in Paso Robles, and the Sémillon is from Vogelzang Vineyard, more locally here in Santa Barbara County in Happy Canyon, which is the eastern part of San Ynez Valley. So these wines are all made from vineyards that are farming at a very high level. We are purchasing these grapes starting in 2018 with Dinner Vineyard. This was our first vintage, buying these grapes from an esteemed vineyard up in Paso Robles. And then in 2019, we decided we'd like to have a white wine to add to this lineup of this upper tier of Tower 15 wines. And so we settled on Sémillon, which is also grown to very high standards. The farming is very high quality, and so they're limiting, limiting the yields to create a very powerful, expressive wine. And so we hope that you'll agree that that's what these are. These are made in very limited quantities. We're doing about 100 to 150 cases of each wine maximum. And so we're talking 4 to 6 barrels is what we end up bottling of each of these wines. So we're going to start off with the Sémillon, of course, being the white wine. And this is, as I mentioned, 2019 Sémillon. It's from Vogelzang Vineyard, and that's in the eastern part of the San Ynez Valley, which is due east of where I'm sitting in Lompoc, which we're on the very western side of that same San Ynez Valley. So this vineyard is about 25 miles or so due east of where I'm located here in Lompoc, and where our winery is located. Excuse me, I'm sinking into the ground here a little bit. So Sémillon is a white grape native to the Bordeaux region of France. The more well-known white grape from that region being Sauvignon Blanc. The Sémillon is often grown and produced in Bordeaux as a still white wine, often blended with Sauvignon Blanc to create white Bordeaux wines. And more famously, Sémillon is grown in Bordeaux and produced as a late harvest wine. There's an area known as Sauternes in Bordeaux, which is famous for its late harvest Sémillon, the most famous being a winery known as Chateau de Kim, and they make these very sweet sticky style stickies, as they call them down under, but the very sweet, viscous late harvest dessert style wines. That's not what we're doing here. Sémillon can also be made into a very beautiful, expressive, aromatic white wine, which is what we've got here. This is not a late harvest. It's dry. There's no residual sugar in it, so it's nothing like what I was talking about with the Sauternes. So it's not a big, rich, oaky style white wine. It's not going to be. It's not meant to be similar to a Chardonnay. It's a little more expressive in its nuance. It's got a lot of minerality, chalkiness. There's some, citrus, lemon peel, and a little bit of herbaceousness. Dried herbs, maybe a little like dried rosemary and lavender. Perhaps some floral qualities going on as well. And it's got this bright, like lemon citrus profile that kind of takes off, when it hits your palate there. It's got those dried herbs kind of in the mid palate, and finishes very clean with nice acidity, a little chalky minerality to it. This is a wine that's we press the grapes and separate all the juice away from the solids, and we ferment just the juice in barrels, and we do this at a low temperature, so the fermentation is slower and we capture more aromatics that way in white wine. And so the wine is fermented in barrel and then also aged in barrel. And we're using French oak barrels that have been used once or twice before, and so they're giving off, those barrels are giving off a little bit of oaky flavor to the wine, and so you pick up a little bit of spice and toasted oak in this wine, but it's not heavily toasted, it's not heavily oaked, because we didn't use a lot of brand new barrels. We use these barrels that have been used once before, therefore it's less oaky in style, but still has that nice oak quality to it. And again, clean and dry on the finish. What a great wine. That would pair beautifully with some shellfish. I think you could drink that with oysters, or even just a sea bass, a nice like miso glazed cod would probably work really well with that dish, or with that wine rather. Next, we're going to get into the two wines from Denner Vineyard, and this is Denner. It's the family's last name that planted this vineyard, and they've been around for quite a while on the west side of Paso Robles in the Willow Creek district, producing beautiful Rhone and now Bordeaux style wines as well. But they've famously grown and produced very highly rated and scored, critically acclaimed Rhone style blends, Grenaches and Syrahs and wines along those lines. So we were fortunate enough in 2018 to start getting a few tons each of Grenache and Syrah. And so these are blocks that we share with the estate, with the Denner winery. The Grenache we're going to start off with here. And again, 2018. This specific block where we get the Grenache grapes from is shared with the winery, with Denner. And they get the other half of the grapes that we don't take from this block, and they use it in their own estate wines. It's a very steep hillside block producing a very powerful dark colored Grenache. Grenache oftentimes has trouble, the grapes themselves, getting color on the skins, and therefore the wines can come out a little bit light in color, sometimes almost to the point of a rosé. This Grenache, they're doing a great job of limiting the crop, and that helps with the color of the skins, and then therefore the color in the wine, but it also gives more depth and flavor and body to the wine, more intense tannins. Oh, very floral, aromatic, nice red fruits, little hints of earth, mushroom, and maybe wet soil, wet earth. Raspberries, a little bit of tart cherry. And then hints of vanilla and cocoa. Those are coming from the barrels. We're using French oak to age these wines. These get about 18 months in barrel before they get bottled. And using about, on the Grenache, it was around 40% new French oak that we aged this wine in. All right, and then a sister grape to Grenache would be Syrah. And Syrah and Grenache both coming originally from the Rhone Valley in France. These are both considered red Rhone varieties. And Syrah is probably the most well-known of the red grapes from the Rhone Valley. And Syrah tends to have the darker color, unlike Grenache, which can be very light-bodied and light in color. Syrah tends to be very dark, inky, purple, and bigger and bolder in style and flavor. And so we've got the 2018 Syrah. And this is from obviously a different block in the vineyard, but very close to where the Grenache is grown. This block is like the Grenache. These are older vines. These vines were planted about 30 years ago, and so these are definitely mature, older vines. The yields are very limited naturally because of the age of the vines. And then the farming, of course, they are going through and further limiting the crop to increase the quality of the wines and the intensity that we get out of the wines. The theory being that the less you grow per vine, the the lower the yield, the higher the quality, the more intense the wine becomes, the flavors become more intensified in the grapes that you do end up harvesting. And so they have ways of limiting the yields, and that would be, you know, things like thinning the shoots, even dropping clusters of grapes during the growing season and not allowing those clusters to fully ripen. And so therefore you get lower yields, which increase your farming costs, but then you also get a much more intense wine with more depth and more layers of flavor. This Syrah is just beautiful. It's been in the bottle for about a year now, and it's really starting to hit its stride. It, like the Grenache, it's a year and a half of barrel aging, and then it gets bottled in the springtime. So this wine was bottled just about a year ago now. It's just starting to become spring in 2021 as I sit here on a beautiful day in the Central Coast. So this is really starting to show off its stuff here. It's got deep red fruits. It's a little bit gamey, like roasted meat, which is a very good thing in Syrah. It's got these wonderful aromatics, dark chocolate, a little bit of bacon fat. There's like blueberry, blackberry. There's great dark fruits in here. Really enjoyable wine. It coats the mouth. It's got a big, rich mouthfeel to it. Very coating with a nice long finish. Wonderful wine to follow up with the Grenache. These are two beautiful red wines that should be tasted together side by side. It's very common in the Rhone Valley and outside the Rhone Valley that these two grapes get blended together to create Rhone style blends, and Grenache and Syrah are usually two of the most dominant grapes in those blends, often referred to as GSMs, where they're Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvèdre. However, we are keeping these separate, bottling them separate, allowing you to experience these wines in their unblended state. And so like the Grenache, we're aging the Syrah 18 months in oak using French oak barrels. This gets a little more new oak than the Grenache. It's about 60% new French oak, which does show through in the wine in a very pleasant way. I get some baking spices, cinnamon and clove, and some really great qualities coming through from the oak barrels in the wine here. Great vineyards, great wines to work with and produce. I could go on and on about these. I'm a huge fan, always have been a big fan of Syrah and Rhone wines, and really enjoying these wines. Looking forward to making these wines over and over for many years to come. Hope you enjoy them as well. Thank you for joining today, and hope to see you all very soon in one of our local tasting rooms. Stop on by. Hope to share a glass with you all very soon. And as we say, Pally for the people.